I move you, sir, House Bill 58 be taken its place yours today, read for a third time as title sponsor only, and placed upon its passage.
Motion made, second. House Bill 58 be taken its place orders today, read for the third time by its title and sponsor only, and placed upon its passage without objection. So ordered. Mr. Clerk, report.
House Bill 58, an act relating to driving under the influence and making an appropriation therefor. Representative Keene.
Gentleman Elliott.
I yield the gentleman from Campbell 67 for explanation of bill. Motion thereon.
Chair recognizes Gentleman Campbell, 67.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 1?
Mr. Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 58.
Gentleman Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, in 2010, House Bill 58 passed by a vote of 95 to nothing. It required ignition interlock usage for all DUI offenders. This year's bill does the same. Many of you know that my daughter Kelly, who is here with us today, was a victim of a drunk driver. The driver hit my daughter, and she had to endure several operations in the hospital. Her mother and I, we didn't know what the extent of her injuries would be, and we prayed and hoped for the best. Although she graduated high school in a wheelchair and still suffers from some long-term physical problems, Kelly is one of the lucky ones. Mr. Speaker, there are 203 families that weren't lucky this past in 09. I would like to thank the gentleman from Christian for his help in crafting House Floor Amendment 1. I believe House Bill 58 has made an even better piece of legislation with Floor Amendment 1. This floor amendment improves the bill by building on the national research and experience from other states. It trains DUI offenders to drive sober, and it trains them to drive with an interlock device early instead of getting in the habit of driving on a suspended license. This is done by allowing the DUI offender to drive earlier, but only with an ignition interlock device, and for repeat offenders only to very special places. The Judiciary Committee heard testimony this past summer from expert recommended by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. House Floor Amendment 1 also creates an indigent fund, allowing an indigent DUI offender to obtain help in installing the device and having it serviced and monitored. This would take the hardship license request out of the question, since persons are able to drive sooner and repeat offenders would be restricted on where they can drive. This frees up valuable time and resources consumed in this area by judges, prosecutors, public defenders, circuit clerks, and the Transportation Cabinet. I believe House Floor Amendment 1 makes House Bill 58 an even stronger, better bill. Mr. Speaker, I move for adoption of House Floor Amendment 1.
Motion made, second for adoption of House Floor Amendment number 1 to House Bill 58. Is there debate or discussion? Chair seeing none, ready for the vote. Those in favor of the adoption of House Floor Amendment 1 will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment's adopted. Gentleman Campbell.
I now want to yield to the gentleman from Butler for comment.
Chair recognizes Gentleman from Butler.
I'll rise to speak in favor of this bill. Okay, I rise to speak in favor of House Bill 58. I'm proud to be one of the co-sponsors. Drunk drivers have caused much tragedy in the lives of many families. We've seen sons and daughters, husbands and wives, grandparents lose their lives. Many terrific tragedies. One comes to mind, the Carroll County accident, where some young people was returning to Elizabethtown, in one of the counties I represent, Hardin County, from a day at Kings Island. Their vehicle was hit by a drunk driver. Numerous young people lost their lives. The ones that did not, several were maimed tragically. We need to take this action. I urge my colleagues to support House Bill 58. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Questions on the adoption of House Bill 58. Is there debate or discussion? Gentleman from Campbell, do you have anything further?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield to the gentleman from Meade.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Meade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As most of you in this room know, I'm in the insurance industry. I'm an insurance agent. For the last 20 years, unfortunately, I have experienced the horrific, both with my clients who were affected and some of my clients who unfortunately caused some serious injury and death to others. This bill is needed, and I'll tell you why, and I do not have a statistic other than 20 years of experience in this business. Oftentimes, one of my clients may get a DUI, and if I'm able to talk to that specific client, try to tell him you've learned your lesson, don't do it anymore. You know, yes, your rates are going to go up. And they look at me dead in the eye and say, oh, I can assure you that'll never happen again. Guess what? Oftentimes, I see them get that second DUI. I don't know how to explain that, given the severity of a ticket from a DUI, but they continue to do that practice. It's dangerous. If you've ever had a family member or a friend affected by one of these accidents, you know what I'm talking about. My heart goes out to the gentleman from Campbell because his family had to experience that. I have to deal with grieving families at times. We need this bill, ladies and gentlemen of the House, and I am in full support of the gentleman from Campbell on House Bill 58. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the lady from Bourbon.
Chair recognizes the lady from Bourbon.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of House Bill 58 on behalf of my constituents William and Ann Lucas, and in honor of their son Michael Lucas, who was tragically killed by a drunk driver. Mr. and Mrs. Lucas are in the gallery with us today to watch as this historic piece of legislation is passed by this chamber. They do so, and in doing it, they experience this in a way that is deep, painful, and personal, and in a way that no parent should ever experience. And I thank them for coming here today to have the courage to have us publicly debate the merit of this bill. The person who killed Michael Lucas had no insurance, no tags, and no registration because he had a conviction for DUI. It is my belief that if House Bill 58 had been the law of the land in 2008, Michael Lucas would be alive today. And for that, I thank the Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Campbell for sponsoring this legislation, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, lady from Bourbon. Gentleman from Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, I move for adoption of House Floor Amendment 1.
Motion made second for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 58. Is there debate or discussion? Gentleman from Christian, you wish to speak on the bill or the amendment? The amendment. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Christian 8.
Mr. Speaker and the gentleman sponsor, I did have some questions earlier to me, but I will pose this. If there are any, I'd be happy to answer them on the amendment and thus the bill. The amendment simply, I think, crafts the legislation in terms of cooperating in our court system much better with regard to the hardship application. We want to eliminate the red tape with regard to that application and limit its usage as much as possible for our clerks and for the public generally. Secondly, it does also eliminate the usage of the impoundment of license plate provision as often, as that is also something that clogs the court system quite regularly, so we'll also deal with that. But there are 12 sections, and I want to commend the gentleman from Campbell and his willingness to work. within the system to strengthen the bill, and I think can only strengthen the bill within our court system. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any on the amendment.
Thank you, Gentleman Christian. Question on the adoption of House Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 58. Is there further debate or discussion? Chair seeing none. Ready for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the floor amendment's adopted. Gentleman Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I would move for adoption of House Bill 58 as amended.
Motion made second for adoption of House Bill 58 as amended by House Floor Amendment 1. Is there debate or discussion? Chair recognizes this gentleman from McCracken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask the clerk to report Floor Amendment 2.
Mr. Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 58.
Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I filed Floor Amendment 2 for my sheriff, one of my sheriffs, and for other sheriffs across the Commonwealth. Currently, the system on DUIs as set up, the money is redistributed back and through the general fund and a whole slew of ways that it's distributed. And actually, in some counties, sheriff's departments are losing money writing DUIs because of the expense of a blood test. Floor Amendment 2 simply does this. With a guilty conviction or plea would create the mechanism for the perpetrator to be in charge and to pay the cost of those blood tests. I move its adoption.
Motion made second for adoption of House Floor Amendment number 2 to House Bill 58. Is there further debate or discussion? If not, are you ready for the question? Those in favor of the adoption of House Floor Amendment 2 will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Amendment's adopted. Gentleman Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I would move adoption of House Bill 58 as amended by House Floor Amendment 1 and House Floor Amendment 2.
Question before the body is adoption of House Bill 58 as amended by House Floor Amendments 1 and 2. Is there further debate or discussion? Chair seeing none, are you ready for the vote? Mr. Clerk, sound those chimes. Those in favor of the adoption of House Bill 58 as amended will signify by voting yea. Those opposed, nay. And the roll call machine is now open for your voting. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change or explain their vote? Have all members voted? Clerk will take the roll. The roll call machine showing 95 members voting yea, no members voting nay. House Bill 58 is adopted. Gentleman Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, in memory of the Lucas's loss, I want to thank each and every member of this body. We've done something good here today. And I appreciate everything that all the questions that you've asked and all your support and help. It means so much to me. I move for the clincher.
Clincher reply without objection. Good job, Gentleman Campbell.
200.